Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our deep dive into the history of mobile phones, and last time we left off right at the edge of the smartphone era.
Yeah, things are really starting to heat up.
So we have to talk about smartphones. I mean, everyone knows the iPhone was a major turning point, but was it really the first smart device? Didn't we already talk about the IBM Simon back in '93?
Right, the Simon. It's true that it was super ahead of its time, but the iPhone, which came out in 2007, it felt like a whole different ballgame.
Different how?
It wasn't just about the tech specs, it was the whole experience. The sleek design, that intuitive touchscreen interface, it felt like the future was suddenly in your hand.
I remember that feeling. It was like magic. All those things we used to do on separate devices, browsing the web, email, music. Suddenly it was all possible in this one tiny thing.
Exactly. The iPhone's success wasn't just tech, it was design and user experience. Apple made smartphones something people wanted, not just something geeky.
And then, hot on the heels of the iPhone, came Android. And that took a totally different approach, right?
Right, Android was all about open source and customization, so it could spread quickly across all kinds of devices and manufacturers.
So like a more democratic approach to smartphones.
Yeah, exactly. Democratizing smartphones in a way that Apple's closed system couldn't.
And it's wild to think that now, those two operating systems, iOS and Android, pretty much rule the entire smartphone market.
It is, isn't it? It's a classic tech story. Two totally different approaches ending up pushing each other, driving innovation. But it's easy to forget. Smartphones, no matter the operating system, they've had this huge impact on our lives that goes way beyond just making calls.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
they've become our constant companions, our little windows to the world. They've changed the way we work, how we learn, how we shop, even how we get around.
It's hard to overstate just how much they've changed things. I mean, think about it. Before smartphones, if you were lost, what did you do? Ask for directions, fumble with a map.
Right.
Now you just pull out your phone and bam, instant navigation. It's like having a personal assistant in your pocket.
It's true, they've become almost essential.
Mm.
And they've also created all these new industries, new ways of doing business.
Oh, totally. Think about the app economy. Millions of apps, everything from games to productivity tools to fitness trackers. It's like a whole new economic landscape, all driven by app developers.
And social media. I mean, it just wouldn't be the same without smartphones. We're constantly connected, sharing everything through these tiny devices.
Which, of course, brings up all sorts of questions about how all this constant connection is shaping our society, the good and the bad.
Right, that's a big one, isn't it? I mean, on one hand, it's amazing. We can stay in touch with people, get information instantly, be so much more productive.
But we can't ignore the downsides, can we? There are all those concerns about privacy, addiction, even social isolation. There are debates about screen time, mental health, misinformation.
It's complicated, that's for sure. Smartphones are powerful tools, but like any tool, it depends on how we use them.
Exactly. And speaking of impact, we should also think about the environmental cost of all this technology.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Mm.
Making smartphones uses a ton of resources, and all these upgrades lead to a lot of electronic waste.
Right. It's a big problem. But the good news is people are starting to realize this. Manufacturers are looking into sustainable materials, and consumers are trying to be more mindful about their tech.
It's good to see that happening. We need to find that balance between innovation and responsibility.
I agree, absolutely. We need to make sure that mobile technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Well said. But with all that said, I can't help but be curious, what's next for mobile phones?
Me too. We're already seeing hints of what the future might hold, and it's pretty wild.
Give us some of those wild predictions. What's on the horizon?
Well, for starters, I think the lines between smartphones and other devices are going to get even blurrier. We've already got smartwatches and tablets, but I think that's just the beginning.
So are we talking like holographic phones
Mm.
or chips implanted in our brains so we can make calls with our minds?
Well, maybe not that far out just yet. But think foldable phones, augmented reality glasses, things that really push the boundaries of what we even consider a phone. And yeah, even implantable devices are being explored. Imagine a world where you can access information, control things, even communicate, just using your thoughts.
Okay, now that's both super cool and kind of creepy.
It is a little bit of both. And it raises so many questions, things we need to figure out as a society. But the point is, mobile tech is evolving beyond the handheld device. It's becoming more integrated with our lives.
Okay, so that's the broader picture. But what about 6G? We talked about it earlier, but what kind of impact do you think it will have?
Well, if 5G was about speed and connectivity, 6G is going to be about hyperconnectivity, near instantaneous communication.
Wait, faster than 5G? I can barely handle the internet speeds we have now. What could we even do with that much speed?
It's hard to imagine, right? But think about it. Real-time holographic calls with people across the world, like they're right there with you. Surgeons doing remote surgery with perfect accuracy thousands of miles away. Self-driving cars that react instantly to each other, making the roads safer.
Whoa. Okay, those are some pretty impressive examples. So 6G isn't just about faster downloads. It's about this world where the physical and the digital merge completely.
Exactly. It's exciting, but it comes with its own set of challenges too. Cybersecurity, data privacy, the possibility of a bigger gap between the people who have access to this technology and those who don't.
Yeah, a lot to think about. It feels like we're talking about the future of society as much as the future of mobile tech.
I think you're right, and that's exactly why it's so important to talk about these things now. We need to think about the potential problems, but also be ready to embrace the incredible opportunities. The future is in our hands.
That's a good point. So we've talked a lot about how smartphones have changed the world, but I'm curious, how have they changed your world, listeners? What's been the impact on your lives, good and bad? Think about that for a moment.
It's something worth reflecting on, and we're going to pick up on that, along with some final thoughts about the future of mobile tech in the last part of our deep dive.